Breaking news out of London today, February 18, 2006. What Princess Catherine privately thought about Meghan Markle has finally been exposed, and the revelations are absolutely devastating. For years, the world has been sold a carefully crafted image of Kate Middleton as the ultimate peacemaker, the calm voice of reason trying desperately to hold the royal family together. But according to bombshell claims in a new biography released just hours ago, that narrative was a complete fabrication. Behind palace walls, Catherine saw exactly what was coming, and sources now confirm she wanted Meghan and Harry out long before the world knew anything was wrong. This isn't speculation. This is documented testimony from palace insiders who witnessed the toxic atmosphere firsthand. And what they're revealing will change everything you thought you knew about the royal rift. The book, written by royal editor Russell Myers and titled William and Catherine, The Intimate Inside Story, dropped like a grenade into the carefully controlled world of royal public relations this morning. Myers, who has covered the royal family for nearly a decade as the Mirror's royal editor, has unprecedented access to palace sources. And what those sources are saying is shocking. According to multiple insiders quoted in the book, Princess Catherine found Meghan Markle abrasive from the very beginning. Not difficult, not challenging to work with, but fundamentally abrasive in her approach to royal life, to palace staff, and to the institution itself. One source is quoted as saying the atmosphere between the two couples became pretty toxic. Meghan was being bullish. Kate found her abrasive. Even more damning, the source reveals that Catherine saw the inevitability of the parting of ways, although perhaps not to the extent of what eventually happened. Think about that for a moment. While the world was still swooning over glossy magazine spreads of the so-called Fab Four, shoulder to shoulder at charity events, Catherine had already concluded this was doomed. She had already decided that Harry and Meghan would eventually walk away, and according to these sources, she wasn't fighting to stop it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Myers reports that Catherine and William didn't just think Meghan was difficult to work with. They believed the Sussexes had an agenda. That's not palace speak for someone being prickly or high maintenance. That's an accusation that Harry and Meghan came into the royal family with a premeditated plan, something beyond simply serving the crown. And sources close to William and Catherine tell Myers they definitely thought the Sussexes' behavior stemmed from something more than being difficult. So what was this agenda? What did Catherine see that made her conclude this marriage, this partnership, this supposedly modern addition to the monarchy, was actually a carefully orchestrated exit strategy? To understand that, we need to go back to the beginning, to the moment when the cracks first started to show. When Prince Harry first introduced Meghan Markle to his family in late 2016, the initial reaction was cautiously optimistic. According to Myers' book, William found Meghan quite refreshing at first. He was genuinely happy for Harry. A source close to William recalls that if Meghan had been prepared to take a chance on their relationship, William certainly would never have stood in their way. But even then, there were warning signs. That same source admits William saw a potential clash of styles on the horizon. He definitely saw it as a potential problem, the insider reveals. Catherine's first meeting with Meghan has been described publicly as wonderful. That's the word Meghan herself used during the couple's engagement interview with the BBC in November 2017, when Harry began to describe how Catherine has been absolutely before Meghan jumped in with wonderful. But according to palace sources speaking to Myers, Catherine's private assessment was far more reserved. She described Meghan as friendly, but with a qualification. There was a touch of California enthusiasm that bordered on overfamiliarity. In the rigidly formal world of royal protocol, where even family members maintain a certain distance in public settings, this was not a compliment. And then came Meghan's introduction to the Queen. Myers writes that Meghan executed a perfect curtsy and charmed William, though he felt somewhat awkward receiving a hug upon arrival. That awkwardness is telling. In royal circles, physical affection, even between family members, is carefully calibrated. Hugs from a stranger, even one about to marry into the family, can feel invasive rather than warm. But Catherine tried. According to Myers, at first she had thought William and Harry's squabbles were rooted in immaturity or stubbornness on both sides. She had long been a voice of reason in the brothers' previous disputes. Catherine was the one who would smooth things over, who would remind both brothers of their shared history and their duty to the crown. She believed family discord could be managed, that brotherly rivalry was natural and ultimately survivable. That belief lasted right up until Harry and Meghan's wedding in May 2018. Then, as Myers documents, following Harry and Meghan's wedding, things were undeniably different. Something fundamental had shifted. And it wasn't just about protocol or personality clashes anymore. It was about how the Sussexes treated the people who make the royal machine function. Here's what turned Catherine and William decisively against Harry and Meghan: the treatment of palace staff. Myers is explicit about this. Harry and Meghan's attitude towards palace staff, who she and William cared about, set the couples on an entirely different course. William and Catherine are described as deeply protective of the private secretaries, press aides, and household staff who serve the royal family. These aren't just employees. In many cases, they are trusted advisors who have dedicated their careers to the monarchy. They are the invisible backbone that keeps the institution running smoothly, and they command fierce loyalty from senior royals who understand their value. According to the book, the Sussexes' behavior toward these staff members was not just dismissive or demanding, it crossed a line. We already know from previous reporting that in October 2018, then Kensington Palace spokesperson Jason Knopf put down in an email his belief that Meghan had bullied 2 personal assistants out of their positions and was making a third staffer's life difficult. Meghan has always denied these bullying allegations, and a subsequent investigation was conducted, though its findings were never made public. But Myers' sources confirm that this pattern of behavior was what convinced William and Catherine that something was deeply wrong. One palace insider tells Myers that William and Catherine felt the Sussexes had an agenda, and they definitely thought the Sussexes' behavior stemmed from something more than being difficult. Think about the weight of that statement. These are not tabloid journalists speculating. These are people who worked alongside the couples, who witnessed the interactions firsthand, who saw how Meghan and Harry operated when the cameras were off. And their conclusion was that this wasn't about adjusting to a new culture or learning the ropes of royal life. This was intentional. This was strategic. This was an agenda. Catherine, according to Myers, came to a devastating conclusion during this period. She saw the inevitability of the parting of ways. While William was still hoping to salvage the relationship with his brother, still believing that love and support could bring Harry back into the fold, Catherine had already accepted the truth. This was not fixable. Harry and Meghan were on a collision course with the institution, and no amount of family intervention was going to change that trajectory. Sources tell Myers that Catherine had less interest than her husband in trying to persuade Harry to stay in his current role. She believed William and Harry's fundamental differences as the heir and the spare had created the inevitability of Harry wanting more from his role than being a bit part player. This is a crucial insight. Catherine understood something that William, blinded by brotherly love and guilt over the spare dynamic, could not yet accept. Harry's resentment wasn't going to be solved by giving him more responsibilities or more public recognition. The system itself, the hereditary hierarchy that puts William on the throne and Harry forever in his shadow, was what Harry couldn't tolerate. And Meghan, far from helping Harry accept that reality, was reinforcing his grievances. Now, to understand just how toxic the atmosphere became, we need to look at specific incidents that palace insiders are now revealing for the first time. One particularly explosive confrontation occurred at St. James's Palace, where William and Harry were discussing their respective charitable work. William had long shown interest in environmental conservation, especially across Africa. It was an area that connected his love of the countryside to broader environmental concerns, and he saw it as a natural extension of the work done by his father and grandfather. But when William tried to discuss his plans for conservation initiatives, Harry's response was confrontational. According to Myers, Harry told William during this meeting, "You don't just get Africa." Think about that exchange. This wasn't a disagreement over strategy or funding. This was Harry accusing his brother of a land grab, of trying to claim charitable territory that Harry believed should be shared or divided. It revealed a fundamental shift in how Harry viewed his relationship with William. They were no longer partners working toward common goals. They were competitors fighting over limited resources and public attention. And sources suggest Meghan's influence was driving this competitive mindset. As the tensions escalated, Catherine made a decision that would prove decisive. She decided she could do no more to bring William and Harry together. This, according to Myers, marked a major turning point in royal relations. For years, Catherine had been the bridge between the brothers. She had absorbed the tension, mediated the arguments, reminded them both of what they owed each other and the institution. But now she was done. She had concluded that her efforts were not just futile, but potentially harmful, enabling a dynamic that needed to collapse before it could be rebuilt. One source close to Catherine tells Myers that after the Oprah interview, she was very clear that any engagement with Harry or Meghan should be with the utmost of caution, because it was obvious that they weren't to be trusted. This comment reveals just how completely the relationship had broken down. Catherine wasn't just stepping back from mediation. She was actively warning William to protect himself and the institution from further damage. What had Harry and Meghan done to earn this level of distrust? According to palace insiders, it was the pattern of private conversations being weaponized in public forums. The Oprah interview in March 2021 was particularly devastating in this regard. Meghan's revelation of a private exchange with Catherine about bridesmaid dresses was, in Catherine's view, a profound betrayal. This wasn't a matter of national importance or institutional reform. This was a personal interaction between two women trying to manage wedding logistics. And Meghan had taken that private moment, reframed it to make herself the victim, and broadcast it to tens of millions of viewers worldwide. Catherine, according to sources, felt deeply betrayed. She had tried to welcome Meghan to help her navigate the complexities of royal life, to offer guidance based on her own experience as an outsider marrying into the firm. And in return, she had been made into a villain on global television, characterized as cold or unkind for suggesting something as innocuous as tights for young bridesmaids. William's reaction to the Oprah interview was equally visceral but different in character. According to Myers, William was particularly aggrieved by Harry's claim of being trapped in the system. A source close to William explains, he felt as though somewhere down the line, perhaps it is impossible to even say when, that he lost his brother. The language here is devastating. William didn't just feel betrayed or angry, he felt grief. He felt the loss of a relationship that had defined his entire life. The source continues, describing Harry's state of mind. He became paranoid, angry, obsessive, and firmly rooted in the past. There's no doubt, at that time at least, there was a lot of love and support available for Harry. But here's what the palace insiders want the public to understand. The love and support were not enough, because Harry and Meghan didn't want reconciliation. They wanted validation. They wanted the institution to admit it had failed them, to apologize, to restructure itself around their needs and grievances. And when that didn't happen, when William and Catherine and the broader royal family refused to accept Harry and Meghan's narrative of victimhood, the Sussexes escalated. The departure in January 2020, initially framed as stepping back to a part-time royal role, quickly became a full exit. And according to Myers, William and Catherine had added reason to be nervous about the Sussexes' departure. The concern wasn't just personal or familial, it was institutional. What would Harry and Meghan say once they were completely free of palace control? What secrets would they reveal? What private conversations would become public ammunition? And those fears proved entirely justified. The Oprah interview in March 2021 was just the beginning. Then came the Netflix documentary in December 2022, which painted the royal family as cold, racist, and trapped in outdated protocols. Then came Harry's memoir, Spare, in January 2003, which included intimate details about private family conversations, physical altercations with William, and deeply personal revelations about Catherine. Through all of this, Catherine maintained public silence. She did not respond to the allegations. She did not issue statements or give interviews defending herself. But according to palace insiders speaking to Myers, her private stance was clear and uncompromising. She believed Harry and Meghan had burned every bridge, violated every confidence, and demonstrated that they could not be trusted with any access to the inner workings of the royal family. Myers writes that Catherine witnessed the deterioration of William and Harry's relationship as an outsider who married into the firm. Unlike William, who was born into this life, Catherine came from a middle-class background. She had to learn the protocols, earn the respect of courtiers, navigate the intense media scrutiny, all while maintaining her own identity. And she did it without complaining, without leaking to the press, without demanding special treatment. So when Meghan, another outsider, chose a completely different path, complaining constantly about the restrictions, and ultimately abandoning her duties, Catherine took it as a personal affront. Catherine saw Harry and Meghan become ever more bitter at having to follow the rules of a hierarchical and hereditary monarchy until they felt as if they could follow them no longer. But here's the crucial distinction. Catherine had followed those same rules. She had accepted the same limitations. She had subordinated her own desires to the needs of the institution, and she had done so because she understood that being royal is not about personal fulfillment. It's about duty, service, and sacrifice. Meghan, in Catherine's view, never understood that. Or worse, she understood it and rejected it, deciding that her individual happiness and self-expression were more important than the collective mission of the monarchy. And Harry, so deeply in love and so resentful of his position as the spare, enabled and encouraged Meghan's rebellion rather than helping her adapt. So when Myers reports that Catherine saw the inevitability of the parting of ways, what he's really saying is that Catherine recognized Meghan would never be able to subordinate herself to an institution she didn't respect. Catherine knew that someone who hugged William on first meeting, who described royal formality as jarring, who bristled at every restriction and protocol, was fundamentally incompatible with the life she had chosen by marrying Harry. This is what makes the revelations in William and Catherine, the intimate inside story, so significant. They expose the carefully constructed narrative of Catherine as a passive peacemaker desperately trying to hold a fracturing family together. The truth, as Myers' sources reveal, is far more interesting and far more impressive. Catherine is a strategic operator who recognized a threat, assessed it accurately, and took the necessary steps to neutralize it. She protected the institution she married into, even when that meant accepting a permanent breach with her brother-in-law. And perhaps most tellingly, she did all of this while maintaining public dignity. She never gave interviews complaining about Meghan's behavior. She never leaked stories to friendly journalists. She never used the press to wage warfare the way Harry and Meghan have done repeatedly. Instead, she simply got on with the job, demonstrating through her actions that duty and service are their own reward, that the monarchy offers a meaningful life to those willing to accept its constraints. The three-word verdict, "Kate found her abrasive," will now become part of royal history. But it's important to understand what that verdict really means. Abrasive, in this context, doesn't just mean personally difficult or unpleasant to be around. It means fundamentally incompatible with the requirements of royal life. It means someone whose values, approach, and temperament create constant friction with the institution. It means someone who will never be able to subordinate personal desires to collective duty. And Catherine, having reached this conclusion early in Meghan's tenure as a royal, made the hardest choice. She stepped back. She let the relationship with Harry and Meghan collapse. She focused her energy on protecting William and their children and the institution itself. And in doing so, she proved herself to be not just a future queen consort, but a true guardian of the monarchy's future. Now, 4 years after the Sussexes' departure, we can see how completely Catherine's assessment has been vindicated. The monarchy has survived, and even thrived. William and Catherine are more popular than ever. They have modernized the institution's approach to mental health, environmental conservation, and early childhood development. They have shown that the monarchy can evolve and remain relevant without abandoning its core principles. The contrast with Harry and Meghan could not be starker. While William and Catherine have built stronger connections with the British public, Harry and Meghan's popularity has plummeted. Their commercial ventures have underperformed or outright failed. Their attempts to build influence in California have resulted not in the global impact they clearly craved, but in isolation and irrelevance. Myers' sources make clear that this outcome was not accidental. It was the result of strategic decisions made by Catherine and William, guided by Catherine's clear-eyed assessment of what the Sussexes represented. They refused to negotiate with someone they believed had an agenda. They refused to compromise institutional integrity for the sake of family harmony. And they were willing to endure short-term pain, the negative headlines, the accusations, because they understood the long-term stakes. According to palace sources speaking to Myers, Catherine and William are no longer worried about what Harry and Meghan might do next. They have built walls, they have protected their privacy, they have demonstrated that the monarchy can thrive without the Sussexes. And most importantly, they have learned the lesson that Catherine tried to teach from the beginning. Some people cannot be trusted, some relationships cannot be saved, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone go, even when that means permanent estrangement. This is the untold story of Megxit, not a tale of victimhood and persecution, but a strategic withdrawal executed by a princess who saw the future more clearly than anyone else. Catherine found Meghan abrasive, yes, but more than that, she found her incompatible, untrustworthy, and ultimately dangerous to everything the monarchy represents. And she was right. What do you think? Was Catherine justified in wanting Harry and Meghan out? Did she see something the rest of us missed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found these revelations as shocking as I did, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because this story is far from over. Russell Myers' book is out now, and there are undoubtedly more explosive details yet to emerge. The truth about what really happened behind palace walls is finally coming to light, and it's even more dramatic than we imagined.